Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap up here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is December 20th, 2024, and we're looking at Bitcoin as always. We're going to follow up with where we left off on Wednesday's video. We'll take a look at the daily first. We'll move up to the weekly. We'll define some zones of interest and some of those areas that have already been essentially hit as well, and kind of the criteria that bulls would be looking for to be met for a bounce and possibly a move back to the highs and higher, and the criteria that the bears are going to be looking for to be met for further downside. So we'll start off with the daily here. We can see that we did get a slight bit of expansion, but Bitcoin didn't hold it. It did make higher highs. It did close above the upper second standard deviation and hit our $106,000 to $108,000 target here with a high of 108,388. So, that is criteria fulfilled. And remember, I said above 106, I was essentially looking at $2,000 a clip. And that's 106 to 108, 108 to 110, and then 110 to 112. Above there, I would start looking for further acceleration, probably 112 to 115, 115 to 120, 120 to 125, and then 125 to around 130. There's some major fib numbers to support that thesis as well to the upside. And then, of course, to the downside, we've kind of already hit some of the essential areas that I was talking about prior. Let's see, did Bitcoin close below? No, Bitcoin did not close below this closing higher low structure right here at 96,660. And in fact, the close came in at 90, well, kind of the close open thus far for this swing down, which, until we see a low set on at minimum above the open of Thursday's candle, which opened at 100,150 or so, at least in a 3-candle structure, that's where I would call this as a swing low confirmed and a closing low confirmed. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's destined for further upside, although it could potentially move further up, but in this case it is a closing higher low structure right now. If it were to close a low right here right now, it is not threatening to do so at this very moment. The etchings of that would be on any closes back above the Friday high here, as it is Friday for me, but the Saturday candle is open already. If we see a close back above 98,132, that would set this low here at $92,000 or 92,115 in this case as a valid swing low, but it would not yet, in my eyes, be a closing low. You will see a lot of indicators call this a closing low. I would need to see closes back above Thursday's open, and that, of course, is that 100,150 number. Now, not that the bulls are off the hot seat at that point, but that would be another higher low on a close if it were to do it right from here right now and not put any further closes down below this closing low. But we do have a swing lower low. Now, is this a deviation? That remains to be seen. It was a nice little washout. This was not entirely unexpected. Bitcoin did hit some key areas to the upside, and getting a nice pullback without that continuation above the upper third standard deviation up here at 108, almost $109,000. So, Bitcoin also breaking down below the basis band. Not the greatest sign for bulls here, but it is still within the context of a range now. We were in a compression. We're still in a compression, but we can see that the bands are kind of set up in a range, making things very easily identifiable for continuation to the downside. And structure, although it is in a lower low swing structure, if it can remain in a higher low closing structure and then take out its most recent high at that 108,388, then this was a deviation swing low to sweep out all of the liquidity from all of these lows over here. And I believe, no, not quite down here by the 90,700, but fairly close. Could it go for more swings down further? Yeah, absolutely. If it does close below this low right here, then we look to the next area at around 93,500 to 600 or so. by the lower second standard deviation. If we see Bitcoin break down below the lower second and below this low here, then we have 2 to 3 confirmations that we need to see. Closes below the lower second, which is currently at 93,745 to 750. We would also need to see closes that break this series of lows over here. And I would take, all of these lows, they're fairly close together. I know it's a big range, but they're fairly close together, all things considered, for where Bitcoin is trading. Realistically, it's the low at 88,713 that we would need to watch, because that would be expansion into support areas. And this is kind of the last higher low swing and close to really pay attention to. And then we start looking over to this consolidation structure, and specifically the low wick of the first bear candle after the big expansion to new highs. And that's coming in at $85,000. Any kind of closes below there, Bitcoin would already be well within an expansion phase to the downside while breaking support. So we would be looking further to the left, likely for a retest of the prior structure over here, somewhere around $73,000 to $75,000 at first. And, that's kind of par for the course. It's still a bull market. The last higher low in the monthly is still $49,000. Not concerned about that, even if it did happen. Yes, it would scare the living crap out of just about everybody in the markets. But if you're, trading these markets, you would have already been short off of the high up here. And to be quite honest, bears still need to be very, very cautious. Bitcoin closed above its lower first standard deviation. So after pushing to the upper standard deviations out of a compression and then getting a washout to the downside that did not close below the lower second and break down from these wick lows over here on a closing basis, all of these lows, well, because we didn't see that breakdown on expansion, not much has really changed. Yes, it was a big move down. If you were short, you made a lot of money. I had a nice scalp that turned into a swing trade. I'm very happy with it. I'm now in a scalp long, and we'll see if that turns into a swing trade. But in this case, if we start to see closes back below the lower first here at 96,700 and specifically below this low side structure right here, then I'm looking to run this low and possibly lower to all of these other lows over here. So that would be our continuation down, possibly on expansion if it was to close below the lower second, right? On the other side of that, a little bit of a warning sign for bears would be any closes back above the basis that can also close above Thursday's open at around 100,150. From there, I would be aware of the upper first. You could see how Bitcoin rejected this area after losing it. So we had the close open above the upper second here, which is coming in at 105,800. Well, after it lost that area, you see that Bitcoin backtested the upper first nearly perfectly here at 102,800. And then it dumped down below the basis band, closed above the lower first. So back above that 100,150, I would look for a retest of that upper first, right where this swing high from Thursday came in at around 102,800. Above there, we're looking right back to the upper second, around 105,800. And then, of course, the highs and higher, kind of a zone between the upper second, upper third, with that high coming in at $108,000. So again, I'd be looking above, essentially 105,800. Might as well call it 106. Above 106, I'm looking again to 108, and then 108 to 110, and then 110 to 112. At least in the lower term timeframes relative to the daily and even the daily itself. So that's kind of my take on price action today. And you can kind of see how this played out with our local kind of fib structure as well. You can see that Bitcoin deviated above the 103,000. This is not local fib structure. Sorry, this is the macro fib structure from the prior cycle high to the bear market low. So 69,000 to that 15.5. We have the 1272. This was our green zone. We saw Bitcoin pop above it, hit some of our local fib pull targets, and even wick above some of those, and then back down right to our red zone, essentially getting front run right before this red zone at $92,000. Anywhere below there, again, we're looking over to this 88,700. Bulls, you start seeing closes below there. We're very likely running the consolidation structure over here. Be very, very aware of, especially daily breakdowns below $85,000. Then we're looking to mid to low 80s. Below there, we're looking to the mid to upper 70s, right? Possibly going in for a retest of the prior structure breakout. And in this case, nothing too crazy going on here. I even drew some of the local structures for you on Wednesday, just kind of pointing out the structure and where, there are zones of interest. And, it gets kind of messy, but, it's really just identifying the swing structure and the close open structure here. You can see that it's essentially the same kinds of areas. So nice. We did lose this higher low swing in here. This would need to be regained. We see where the basis is. We see where the lower first is, right at this low over here. To the lower second would be losing that low. Anywhere below there, we're getting expansion down to test this close open, this low, these highs over here, and then further on down the supports here to this low. And then, of course, the consolidation structure lows over here from the expansion up. Same to the upside. Regain this essentially 99,000 to 101, 175. That's the top side of all of the closes here and some of the swings at this resistance. Yes, there is the 102,500 to 600 swing high that you need to be aware of right by, again, the upper first. So we have confluence with all of this stuff. Above there, we're looking to the actual swing high at 104. And then the upper second to the close open highs, and then above there, the actual highs, and potentially higher on any expansion that breaks above 108,388. So pretty straightforward stuff. Let's go ahead and look at a few other things. So we have the bearish divergence. Like I said, this is played out. There's many drives of it. We did play out down to some of the more important areas. Where's the bearish control zone? $90,000 is where the bearish control zone is now. So be aware of that. Bitcoin starts to poke down there. Whereas Bitcoin going to be at? Well, Bitcoin's going to be essentially right around the low side here, right around this structure here for this low, possibly dipping down into this structure here where this close opens coming in, which is essentially $90,000. So anywhere around the bearish control zone, that would essentially be anywhere between this support level and this support level. And if it's lost, then we're headed down further, right? Continuation on expansion, in that case, breaking through supports. And to the bulls, relief, if there is a low put in here rather, there's still going to be a bullish divergence of the hidden kind. So hidden bullish divergence would still populate from this current structure, and it would still continue to populate all the way down until we see any kind of break below this. This is the 88,700 low side swing right here. And technically, because it is measuring the close, you want to see closes above 90,682. So again, watch that bearish control zone of RSI very closely if Bitcoin continues to drop. Where is the SMA? SMA is at 104,400, so right in that $105,000 area, which is putting us back into the overhead resistance above this swing high, massive $12,000 wick-to-wick candle, or swing to swing if you like. And then above there into the bullish control zone, we're going to be looking upper second standard deviation. I suspect bullish control zone is going to be, 105,600. So yeah, we would be right back to the highs around there. Still have to be aware, even if Bitcoin pushes those highs, further bearish divergence can continue to accumulate on any higher high structures, and even lower highs because of where they're positioned relative to these highs. So just understand that. And on the other side of this, whether or not Bitcoin's ready to do this, I think we would see this go into a further consolidation, possibly a lower high, and then, maybe even a higher low, and then another lower high, lower low, that sideways consolidation kind of chop. That's where we would likely see regular bullish divergence start to continue, where we get some lower lows. And in this case, we don't have the possibility for that just yet because RSI is measuring closes. So that is something to be on the lookout for. I will note that trendline regression has been broken here on the regular Stochh, and the pivot is 106,910. This is the Saturday pivot, Saturday candle pivot. So if Bitcoin were to close back above there, we're running the highs and maybe even higher. But in this case, it does look as though it wants to test down into the bearish control zone of a regular stochastic momentum indicator. And I'm not overly concerned about that. We haven't seen any crazy structure breaks just yet. Nice little washout. We'll see how this develops over the weekend into next week. And reminder that there's going to be a lot of traders that are going to be off, taking Christmas vacation right through the end of the year. So a lot of the traditional markets and crypto markets, when you have the pros going home, there's games that can be played. So, just understand that a lot of the positioning coming into this week was set up for the first and second quarter of next year. And we'll see how that plays out through the end of this month and into the first quarter, obviously January. A lot of people excited about January, of course, because of the incoming administration being crypto friendly. And they're going to be confirmed Trump is going to be confirmed on the 20th. So a lot of eyes on that date. We'll see how this plays out in terms of market sentiment and market movement coming in through the end of the month into January. And even before that, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. So, and I've got a lot of stuff to talk about coming into the end of the year here as well. So, I'm not going to get to that obviously today. But we will go ahead and, I will have a lot to say on that, after next week, coming into the last couple of days of the year and after Christmas. So let's go ahead and take a look let's go ahead and get this off here. Hold on one moment. Actually, we can turn this back on. We'll keep that. Let's go take a look at the weekly real quick, because there is some criteria that I think is going to be fairly self-explanatory here on the weekly, and that is, that the weekly is in an expansive posture still, and I've mentioned this a few times, right? This is full-on expansion to the upside, and as long as Bitcoin is trading and closing candles above the upper first, it's good. We are seeing an 81 under. It's 81.349 under 81.9, almost 82. What this means to me, and what this is telling me, is that I don't remember why I was marking this particular structure here. There was something I was showing somebody. I don't quite remember what that was, but what I want to do. I was just thinking about that. I want to show BBWP. And this is something that bulls need to be aware of, and bears. Okay, we have BBWP coming into this weekend for where Bitcoin is trading right here, right now, threatening to cross under its moving average. But the moving average is still pointed to the upside here. So that does mean that as long as Bitcoin, can move back up towards the upper second standard deviation, even if it closes under the moving average, if the moving average is still pointed up, it can actually get back above the moving average. And this is where, after an expansion like this, we typically see the upper second standard deviation when either the standard deviation is closed below or it passes price action in an expansive phase like this for volatility. It tends to act as overhead resistance. Not always to the number. It's pretty damn close this time at 107,500. But when Bitcoin was right on this, it was like right on price action. Like they were trading together, because this does move ever so slightly with price. So as long as Bitcoin is trading above the upper first standard deviation at around 90,800 on the weekly, and wherever this updates to, whether it's 91 to $92,000, whatever it updates to this Sunday after the close open, as long as it's trading above here, the zone of interest for volatility will remain to the downside, the upper first, and to the upside, the upper second. And wherever the upper second ends up is going to be an area of interest, likely going to be around, 108 to 110, right? Like when it updates, it's going to continue to move up because the basis band is moving up. We're still in a consolidation structure. It will typically pass price, right? Like this. So it passes price, and then it will act as resistance upon being tested. So you see how Bitcoin was trading above the upper second. It dipped down below it. And then as the expansion began to slow down a little bit, we had BBW peaking under its moving average. It retested the upper second directly. Here's another example back here. So we had this big expansion phase up. Bitcoin was closing above it, moved back and even down below the lower first. But as it hit the upper first here, where did it spike? Upper second before moving to the lower first. It doesn't always happen that way. You'll see that after it moved off of the lower first zone, then it started to close back above the upper second, but still finding significant resistance there. And then it got some expansion back up through it. You see it lost it and then retests it. And then it went into its compression here for its long form consolidation structure. And, there's consolidation, reaccumulation, and all that other stuff. Just depends on the time frame you're looking at. Here on the weekly, it's consolidation. And in this case, and technically they're one and the same. They're just people want to be fancy and act like they are way smarter than most when they say it. But in this case, upper second is going to be of interest to the upside. Upper first is going to be of interest to the downside. If that is lost, that does mean that we're likely going to see Bitcoin go back into a more compressive look. We could see something like what we saw back in February, where it kind of just dips down, loses it, comes right back up in the context of the expansion to the upside. Or we could see something where it just comes down and starts to go sideways again into a compressive phase or a compression. And or consolidation rather. In this case, if it did lose it, be aware of where the basis band is currently at around $74,000. I do expect this to be 75, 76, maybe even higher after this week's close, provided Bitcoin's closing anywhere above the upper first standard deviation. Now, when looking at momentum on the weekly, ignore this trendline regressions from the daily, 104,819. So basically, because that number does also oscillate while the weekly candle's open, I would say that Bitcoin, in order to cross back up for a regular stoke here, we need to see closes above around $105,000. And again, this can remain overbought for an extended period of time. This is the first cross down and maybe even continuation. You can get a little bit of a bullish reset. It can even dip out. And then, you start to get divergences. For a regular stoke, you can actually take divergences just like you would with RSI divergences, because it is measuring close over close price momentum. And look, it's just confluence. You're not going to use these as signals. We're just taking all of these different pieces and putting them together to find where things are, where we're coming up with areas of confluence for price action pivots and areas of interest. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't have too much more to say, I believe, here on price action for Bitcoin. I should, I'm probably going to be a little bit more quiet next week. I'll see if I can do a Monday show for Macro Mondays. I think that would be pretty important considering some of the price action that we're seeing, and that many professionals are going to be on vacation for an extended period of time. Some maybe even have already been on vacation. I know a lot of guys just started to go, started to get ready to go. Basically today they were done. They packed it up early on Friday and left on vacation for traditional markets at least. And even some of the guys that are working like OTC desks for crypto. Now I think maybe Monday I will try to do a Spaces event. I will definitely be there on Tuesday if Peace will have me for a Learn TA with Landy with the Deorganized Media Platform. Really cool website they got going on, by the way. I got to make sure that we kind of push that out there when we get our show rolling there on Tuesday, maybe before the Tuesday session. I will again have a Monday video at the end of the daily close, Monday into Tuesday. Yeah, and other than that, you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all that being said, Landy out. Take care.